Everyone, it's LS, and this is the patch 9.3 notes rundown. We are just going to jump right into it. I have high hopes for the patch. I am really hoping not to be let down, as it might severely crush my desire to actually play this game for a while anymore. So, let's see. Aatrox. Base stats, health region 5 to 8. Health region grows 0.25 to 0.75. Okay, Umbral Dash. Healing versus non-champions. Attrex no longer heals for 3 to 4 behind scaling of the damage he deals versus non-champions. Attrex no longer stores a charge of Umbral Dash every 26 to 10 seconds scaling. Cooldown 3 to 1 second to 9 to 5 seconds, now reduced by cooldown reduction. CDR previously effect. Okay, so Aatrox is gone. Aatrox health region increase, or Akali health region increase. Q no longer heals. Turret reveals Akali through Shroud. W cooldown increased late. Base health region 3.5 to 6. Q 5-point strike. Akali can no longer heals for 5, 10, 15, 20. W Twilight Shroud cooldown 20 to 11 seconds, 21 to 13 seconds. Akali can only be picked super situationally as a counter pick, most likely, and the team comp has to set up for it. So Akali is now in the same exact realm as Kassadin, so Akali is gone as well. Or at least I'm pretty sure that Akali is gone as well. I don't think that she can actually deal with the loss of all of this healing. Unless runes change or itemization changes, I think that this is actually way too big of a hit against her. I do not think that the compensation of the health region is actually enough. I think that the fact that Twilight Shroud no longer prevents turrets from revealing Akali is also extremely problematic, because a lot of her diving plays and ability to go ham with certain junglers and whatnot in 2v1 scenarios and even 2v2s is now going to be gimped. I do think that she can still be picked, probably with more of an upside than a Kassadin, in very similar situations in which you could find yourself squeezing a Kassadin pick in, but that's only for really competitive. So for solo queue, I think that Akali is hit really, really, really hard, and for competitive, I think that it's way too niche at that point. And with the way that mid lane and everything was stacking up, and the way that answers and stuff were being formed in recent patches as well, I think that Akali is probably on her way out, and the stat checker mids are most likely going to come back and be resuming. So Camille no longer stuns minions or monsters. E-hookshot. Non-champion stun hookshot no longer stuns minions and monsters. I guess this actually significantly impacts her clear time, but also her sustain inside of the jungle. I know that Camille has been fading out of popularity at least a little bit in the last few patches on Korea. I know that NA and EU were never capable of playing her anyway, so it doesn't really matter all that much there. But I do think that with the changes that she suffered in recent patches, unless something dramatic happens up in top lane, we won't see Camille as a champion appear almost at all anymore, especially because one of the main things that was helping her keep her inside of the meta was her synergy with certain champions. One might be able to argue that if Orianna returns, maybe this sort of a hit, in addition to the fact that rubber banding playstyle for aggressive junglers can maybe keep her alive in certain aspects of the game, but again, super niche or niche type of play style and whatnot, so don't expect to see Camille all that much anymore. Cassiopeia, Q base damage decreased late, ratio increased, W damage reduced late, Q costs. If Camille can get nah, she'll probably just, just what I said. She'll show up very, very rarely. Cassiopeia, Q base damage decreased late, ratio increased, W damage reduction reduced late, cost increased late, Q noxious blast damage. So this is the thing that you end up maxing. So she's missing 10 damage at rank 2, and then she is missing 20 damage, or yeah. Okay, so she's missing 10 damage at rank 2 and then 20 damage at rank 3. The ratio is 0.8 to 0.9 ability power, so I guess she's getting a little bit more oomph right there, so she's not totally missing 10 and 20 damage, I guess, overall. W Miasma costs 70 to 70, 80, 90, 100, 110 mana. That's not really that impactful in the early stages of the lane, as we just have to look at the rank 1. Damage per second is also unchanged, and then the damage per second is only hit by 5 and then 10. So you're basically looking at this like as a mid-game team fighting type of damage. So she's missing 10 damage per second while you're standing on top of it. Maximum damage 100 to 300 scaling, 200 to 200 scaling. So obviously that is impactful, but the W Miasma is not really meant to deal damage, but rather act as the annoying CC, slow, and yada 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 for Cassiopeia. Do I think that this actually makes Cassiopeia disappear from the meta? No. I think that what ends up happening here is that Cassio enters back into the meta as a champion that will occasionally make it through pick and bans, and she's still likely going to be strong. Obviously, the base damage missing 20, though, at rank 3 is quite problematic. But again, it's not exactly 20 damage because of the ability power, so she is essentially missing some auto attacks, if that's how you would want to look at it as a top lane or bottom lane Cassiopeia player. It doesn't mean that in situations where you would want to pick her, which is like against mono red type of team compositions, very all-in, aggressive, low range, yada 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 type of team comps and competitive, she'll still be powerful. Obviously, inside of solo queue against players that don't know how to manage lane phase against her or actually manage the spacing and distance between you and her, she'll also continue to be problematic in that regard. So I think this is actually the softest nerf that Riot has inside of the patch that is actually still able to keep the champion somewhat relevant, I believe. Yes, I do think that losing 40 damage off at rank 5 is okay, but as long as you end up getting to 400 AP or whatnot, everything after that, you end up actually dealing more damage. So the mid into late game Cassiopeia transition, it will end up doing more damage with the Q. Obviously, it'll be balanced out by the loss of damage on the W, but you're almost never getting maximum value out of the W damage anyway, so it's not really that concerning. Aralia, health growth and armor, increase passive attack cap, passive stack cap, increase stacks grant attack speed instead of damage. Max stack bonus grants damage instead of attack speed. Okay, this is what? Q bonus minion damage increase. W reduces more physical damage but no longer reduces magic damage. Okay. Health growth 85 to 95, so she ends up getting a ruby crystal. Armor goes up by 2. Passive Ionian Fervor per stack 4 to 17, levels 1 to 18. To 8 to 12%, levels 1, 7, 13. Stack cap 4 to 5, that's really brutal. Max stack 16 to 68, levels 1 through 18. To 40, 50, 60% levels 1 through, okay. Max stack bonus 0.2 on hit damage. 15, 66 plus 0.25, okay. Blade Surge. Damage to minions is up. W Defiant Dance. Damage reduction goes 50%. Reduced damage. So the thing here is that it looks like they're trying to make Aralia into like this auto attack based duelist that's able to do stuff like that. Except there's a champion that does this a lot better, and his name is Jax. So this is really weird. It's like they're trying to. I actually talked with Riot Maple, and I didn't think that this was entirely the direction that they were going to go with it. I know that they wanted to try to shift her up into top lane, but the problem is that I think that when you do it like this, Jax is just actually a better Aralia. It's just always a better Aralia. I mean, like. Oh, God, I really want to make a joke right now, but, like, it's just so odd. It's in such poor taste. I'll make it after I make this video because we got to keep these videos semi-professional, okay? You know, we can only enter so many roasts and types of humor, so say that after. Anyways, all right, champion first encounter. Okay, cool. Marksman items. Cloak of Agility. Cost 800 gold, critical strike trans 20%. Doesn't matter, you end up itemizing this last in most cases. Anyway, updated Infinity Edge. Attack damage 70 to 80. Gold is unchanged. BF sword, pickaxe, cloak of Agility. Oh, welcome back. This is actually a lot better, I think, of itemization. The 1225 thing is really, really, really awkward. So I actually think this is quite a big buff. Critical strike trans 25%. Crit damage increase now increases critical strike damage by 25%. Remove true damage. No longer converts 10% of critical strike damage to true damage. Okay, Molten Edge. I mean, all the Ornn upgrade things are basically jokes because Ornn is a joke, so whatever. Okay, updated Essence Reaver. Total cost 3,000 to 3,200. Attack damage 75 to 60. Cooldown reduction 20% unchanged. Critical strike chance 25%. Basic attack runs 1.5% of missing mana, so this is now a bad item again. Spear of Shojin. Grants attack damage, health, cooldown reduction, and Awakened Dragon. Renamed Essence Flare. Total cost 3,500. BF Sword, Kindle Gem, Longsword, 950 gold. That's not that bad of an inventory. I've definitely seen some bad inventories. I just got done casting Kinzone Pawns Akali last week, so, you know, you don't have to tell me about bad inventories. Attack damage 60, health 250, cooldown reduction 20. Awakened Dragon. Your next base attack after casting your ultimate grants Awakened Dragon for 6 seconds, granting 50% attack speed and 20% basic ability cooldown refund on basic attack. So this is the new Essence Reaver. Okay. This is actually all fine. Yeah, this is fine. I actually like that they changed these 2 items, so they just made a new item for ADCs. Storm Raider now amplifies your energized attacks and now amplifies your energy effects and causes them to slow the target. Ooh, no longer grants a guaranteed critical strike after not basic attacking for a few seconds, okay? Total cost is up by 300. BF Sword, Longsword, Kerchi's Shard, 850. Attack damage is down by 5. Attack speed is also down by 10%. Movement and basic attacks generate energized stacks. 100 stacks, your next basic attack deals 65 bonus magic damage on hit and slows the target by 40%. Ooh. Your other energized effects are 30% more effective and also slow their target by Ooh. No longer causes your next basic attack to crit. Attack speed. So wait a minute. This is hold on, let me ponder about this. So this ends up replacing rapid fire cannon in skirmishy type team compositions where you don't actually need the sieging. But the thing is that it's also really expensive for the effect. So this is sort of like a 4th or a 5th item, very, very novel. This is a luxury item, and it's only able to be applicable against certain team compositions. So you probably do want an energized item. I'm just not sure if it's actually going to be Storm Razor. Phantom Dancer now grants a shield at low health, but no longer decreases damage from the last champion you hit. Spectral Waltz now triggers on attack rather than proximity to enemy champion, okay? Total cost is down by 100. Attack speed is down by 15%. Critical strike chance is down by 5%. If you take damage that would reduce your health below 30%, gain a shield that absorbs up to 240 to 600. Scaling starts at level 9 and ends at level 18. Damage for 2 seconds, so this doesn't really matter because you're not rushing this item first anyway. No longer decreases damage taken from the last champion you basic attack by 12%. Spectral Waltz grants unit pass-through and 7% movement speed for 2 seconds after basic attacking a champion with no cooldown. Oh, Twitch. Twitch loves this item. Kog'Maw loves this item. Caitlyn loves this item again. There are so many champions that just love this item. Tristana loves this item. Jinx loves this item. This is such a nice 3rd and 4th item, especially when you're ahead. You might even be able to actually just go this second if you're actually just like... If you're God mode inside of a game at like level 10, level 11, and you're super fed with a really big bounty, XP lead, and whatnot, you might actually just be able to go Phantom Dancer second. This is really, really, really good. Yasuo likes this item a lot as well, although Lifeline is a passive, so maybe not all the time, depending on if you still want Sterix, but overall, I think this is actually super powerful. The champions that come to mind off the top of my head that really like this, that would almost itemize it regardless of how the game is turning out, is actually Twitch, potentially Kog'Maw, Jinx, and Tristana, I guess, would take that almost all the time. Shard is 200 gold cheaper. Zeal down by 100 gold. Rapid Fire Cannon is down by 200 gold, but loses 5% critical strike chance. Runan's Hurricane is down by 200 gold, but loses 5% critical strike chance, so that doesn't really matter. That's not the end of the world. Static Shiv, down by 200 gold. Attack speed, however, is up by 5%. Critical strike chance is down by 5%, not the end of the world, so this is actually really, really, really good. Last Whisper, cost increased, attack damage and armor penetration increased. Cost 1,300 to 1,450 gold. Attack damage 10 to 20, okay? I will take a 150 increase to get an extra longsword added in. 20% total armor penetration. This is actually really good. Lord Dominic's Regard, attack damage up by 5. Mortal Reminder up by 5. Absolutely welcomed. Absolutely love these buffs. Okay. Simple buffs and nerfs. All right, let's take a look. Lissandra, Q cost increased late, E damage increased late. Ice Shard. So you're going to end up maxing this first. So you're missing... I guess we know what TSM's been practicing. All right. E, Glacial Path, 70 to 250 scaling, 70 to 210. Glacial Path's endpoint now shows through terrain, fog of war, and brush to enemies within 600 range of it. This has nothing to do with why Lissandra is oppressive. This has absolutely nothing to do with it. Have you seen this? They took 4 mana. So let me translate. He said that's not a Lissandra nerf. This is a joke. This is Zoe 0.25. Holy shit. Oh my god. 0.25. John a 5 damage. Aralia 5 MS. This isn't a nerf. This doesn't do anything. This does absolutely nothing. Oh, Twitch chat, help me. Scion, Q damage decreased, W cooldown increased early, decimating smash, minimum damage 30 to 110, scaling to 20 to 100, okay. Full damage charge, 90 to 330. This isn't how he goes to approaching winning laning phase. I do think that the full damage charge, obviously losing out on the damage, is maybe something that can be felt to a degree. W Soul Furnace, 15 to 11 seconds. Okay, I do think that that is, that's actually an okay nerf. Actually, hold on. Max! I'm a coach, by the way. What is Scion Max? Yeah.
Well, if you're Max Waldo, you walk into lane with a Sunfire Cape W Max. But if you're a regular Scion pleb, Max Q.
Alright, so the W thing's actually problematic.
Look at it.
He gets 4 seconds added.
That sucks, yeah.
Yeah, that's really big.
People who pressure him in lane, who want to constantly trade with Scion, now get the...
So yeah, a lot of champions that can actually trade and skirmish with him in between his cooldowns and also have ways of bypassing his decimating smash just got a lot stronger. The interesting thing here is I'm gonna control F something for me. Can't quite find Urgot.
Right, so that's very bad.
That is a bad time.
Bad for Scion.
That is very interesting because that means that we have an undisputed king of top lane right now in patch 9.3. Hold on, let me just control F Karthus. Couldn't quite find that one either. That's really strange.
You're saying that Urgot is the king of top lane, but what you're not considering is Orianna top.
You're right.
I am right.
All right, well, no one's going to pick up on that for a while, so doesn't even matter. Zyra, Max, go away. Right. Back into the cage. All right, Zyra, plant damage decreased. We took a light touch with last patch, Mono Region nerf, which asked Zyra to be a little bit more careful with her cooldown. This patch swings harder by targeting her harass. All right, so plant damage, 24 to 109, 20 to 100. It doesn't really matter because Zyra's not getting picked that much anyway. I will say that I do think that there are times and places to squeeze Zyra into competitive team compositions, and teams just aren't doing it yet. So it's a little bit sad to see these things happen preemptively before she actually starts rearing her face in competitive, but sort of whatever. Minion and Monster Gold bounties. Dying while behind in farm delays how quickly you accrue a Minion and Monster Gold bounty after respawning. If you die with less minion and monster gold than the enemy team's average, okay. Say you die with 200 less minion and monster gold than the enemy team's, okay. Okay, that's all fine. Loading screen update, bug fixes. All right, before I get to the skins, let me just actually talk about something. So here's what ends up happening here. Twitch and Kog'Maw have been champions I've talked about for a very, very long time that people sleep on. And with a lot of champions getting hit and gutted in other areas. Unfortunately, Ezreal and Lucian were left completely untouched. Not unfortunately, but Ezreal and Lucian were left untouched, and so Lucian is still going to be one of the bullies down in bottom lane. However, with a lot of these changes, I do think that we will see a return of crit ADCs now, finally. But I think that Jinx, Twitch, Tristana, and Caitlyn, obviously, are some of the ones that will definitely be coming back, and they'll have a little bit more oomph inside of them now than what they just had in 9.2, and we've already seen some of them begin to appear. So we can definitely look at that as a very big positive. The last Whisper changes are very nice, especially because of the tank meta type stuff. The Storm Razor is cool. Spear of Sojin is, I mean, that's cool. The Storm Razor is the really, really big buff. One of the problems, however, here is I guess that the champions that like to rush Storm Razor first are not going to be rushing this first anymore. So I don't actually know if we'll have a return of like the BF sword into Static Shiv type of a meta, because Static Shiv is lowered considerably, so we might actually get the BF sword into Static Shiv for lane clear, and then just the passive, because it prevents early game, pseudo sieges and pseudo stalls and whatnot from happening. So that actually sounds like it might be on the horizon of coming back. And then obviously with the plates and champions like Caitlyn and Tristana and Jinx, they're extremely good at killing stuff like that. And depending on how the top and mid lane meta shapes up, we could actually maybe potentially get very, very bizarre and unorthodox lane swaps that end up occurring because of some of the change to some of these items. The Aatrox nerf, I think, completely actually deletes him from the game. I think that I do know that they were hitting Aatrox, but I think that this is definitely overshot, because what this ends up meaning is that in the later stages of the game, he can no longer actually contend with a lot of split pushers if he doesn't have the ability to beat them straight up, because of his reliance on actually having the minion waves in order to replenish all of his HP in the later stages of the game. So now, without that, he can't do anything there. The other problem is this entirely deletes Aatrox jungle, and Aatrox was mostly being seen in the jungle, at least in Korea lately, and then obviously in top lane, but he shouldn't have been being picked in top lane. Just Korea is extremely slow to adapt to the meta because he can't contend with a lot of the current top laners right now, and even when he ends up winning, if you actually look at the game in isolation, Aatrox doesn't actually end up doing a lot to help account for the win in and of itself. The Akali change is basically putting her in the Kassadin department. She can potentially be picked in competitive only in the same exact kind of situations that you would often find yourself being able to pick a Kassadin, but in that case, and also with the way that mid lane might end up changing up, and the way that ADCs might end up changing up, and with the addition to like that new item that's basically anti-assassin overall, except it doesn't come in the form of a Hex Drinker, I think it really makes it problematic for champions like Akali to end up coming back. So I think that Aatrox and Akali, they had their prestige skins, they made Riot enough money, and now they're going to end up departing from Summoner's Rift. Cassiopeia probably has a skin in the works, and so we're going to be very slow to actually remove her from the game, so I'm just letting you guys know about that. Aralia probably made more than enough money over the years, and until they figure out what to do with her, Jax is just an overall better version of her, and I can't actually imagine a reason that you would ever pick Aralia, because her passive she's just a really bad Jax now. Like, I get what they're trying to do with her. I get that Jax maybe doesn't have, like, the Defiant stance. He doesn't have the disarm on the R. But Jax has something a lot better. Jax has something called I Kill You in 3 hits. Jax has a innate tankiness with much better itemization and build paths that don't stunt his own wake up and his own ability to actually CS inside of the laning phase. Aurelia is sort of like a choose your own adventure when it comes to itemization that causes her to stagnate and have a much later wake up than some of the other split pushers up in top lane. And with these types of changes, you won't see her in the mid lane or ever in like jungle or something like that. So that's basically the, disarm's gone, coach, by the way. Cool. Oh yeah, it did. It got removed from her ultimate, and then she got the damage. I'm a coach, by the way. Aurelia main coming through. Zyra thing is unfortunate. The Scion will still end up being picked up in top lane, but there is going to definitely be more trading windows available. The Lissandra thing is a complete joke, because it basically just suggests that they don't know what is making her oppressive and strong. And to be honest, it's not necessarily just Lissandra in and of herself, and it's also not Aftershock. It's the fact that long-range mages are very bad right now, which is actually why Zoe is starting to come back. And if Zoe ends up getting hit again or something like that, what's going to end up happening in the next patch is we're going to see an increase of utility-type mages or pokey-type mages. We're going to see Orianna come back into mid lane with high prevalence, and if we don't, then, I mean, people just don't know what they're doing. Zoe is going to end up coming back. Both of those champions are extremely good against Lissandra and offer a lot to team compositions, especially if the crit ADCs end up coming back. Orianna has a lot of potency inside of that. Orianna is also very good with Protect the X comps and whatnot. We might end up seeing, if all the stats keep getting hit, we might actually see champions like Karma and Lulu. I mean, we already did see her come back into mid lane. I do think that Lulu is quite terrible, but if all the crit ADCs return to power, then it might not matter that she's actually that terrible, because no champion in mid actually deals any damage, and this is one of the problems with mid lane right now. LeBlanc is inadvertently being affected by the way that the jungle is being changed, and the way that the mid lane matchups are right now, and the way that runes are, and the loss of damage that she's had. She's being picked into matchups where she can find herself very good spots with better 2v1 or 2v2 potency, and if the enemy team is really vulnerable to her, but it doesn't change that mid lane's really weak. And when mid lane's really weak, champions like Syndra have the potential to actually return. Orianna often almost always comes back because she is basically a stat check for what is going on in this lane. This is also what you can often see down in bottom lane with Thresh, and you can also see this inside of the jungle with Lee Sin. These are champions, and especially even Sion. Sion started rearing his head again after top lane started getting more and more boring and more stale and stagnant. There are champions that basically exist in the game that, despite almost being continuously nerfed over the course of several patches over years or whatever, they basically speak to Rise as a manner of asking the lane, how competent is it right now from a balance perspective? And oftentimes, the lanes are really, really weak, and they're extremely fragile. And then what ends up happening is Riot continues to nerf champions over and over and over, and very rarely do those types of nerfs ever get undone. Here, I'm gonna give you guys a blast from the past. When is Quinn gonna be compensated now for all the changes that have happened to the itemization and the runes that were making Quinn good? Is Quinn just gonna be completely forgotten about because she was problematic due to things that never actually pertained to her? No, of course not. So Quinn is never going to see the light of day ever again. There is a ton of champions that will similarly be hit and completely forgotten about, because what's making them good is not necessarily their own kit, but rather how the kit interacts with stuff inside of the meta and how their kit is being resisted by the certain meta. Lissandra isn't actually problematic. If you give Orianna a little bit more damage, you give Syndra some more damage, you give Zoe some more damage, you give, I don't know, you give Kassadin a little bit more damage, he's going to fight. They're all going to put her in line in mid lane if you just give them a little bit more damage, or if you actually change the runes. Now, suddenly, Aftershock Lissandra isn't looking like such a hot pick anymore in mid lane. And so, it's not actually Lissandra and Aftershock that's problematic, but rather every fucking champion in mid sucks dick right now. So there's very few answers that can actually do anything against the oppressiveness that is walking up to you, pressing W and getting this massive stat boost that doesn't allow you to trade against it, and this point and click ability that just isolates a target or lets you get out of jail free. So because every champion sucks, that's why Lissandra's good. There's so many instances of this in League of Legends. Why does everyone think Elise is suddenly returning? Because all the junglers suck, and she has percentage damage, and there's some tanks inside of the game, and rubber banding got a little bit better because of the way that jungle stuff happened, even though, you know, some people are going to look at it like, oh, didn't rubber banding and XP just get hit? No! Elise is starting to come back because everything sucks, and League goes through this cycle over and over and over where everyone just starts to suck, and when everyone starts to suck, the champions with the best kits, the most annoying kits, the most durable kits, Ezreal, they start to come back. The champions like Lucian, which is basically mid lane Syndra, he starts to come back because he says to everyone else down in bottom lane, you guys all suck and you can't actually 1v1 me. No one can actually deal damage against me, and so Lucian goes into bottom lane, and everyone's like, oh man, Lucian's pretty cool, right? No, Lucian isn't cool. Everyone else just sucks. Jesus. Every champion in the game right now sucks. That's the problem. God. Rather than nerf Lissandra, buff Orianna, buff Zoe, buff the answers to her, and then watch how these other champions that answer those champions come out of the woodworks. And then, rather than just nerfing them all into oblivion again and then pretending that they don't exist for 4 or 5 patches, you add something else that buffs them and fights back against them. There's very few champions in the game that are legitimately disgusting. Like, I actually can't even think of one. I think of Xin Zhao, and I think of plenty of junglers that can actually contend with him. I think of Urgot up in top lane, and I think that there's actually answers to him that are just currently not being found, although I will continue to call him the king of top lane. Why isn't Karthus being touched? This is another really weird thing. And trust me, I am an R enthusiast on Karthus, okay? And I've been very vocal about jungle Karthus for quite a long time. Karthus is really, really gross. And one of the suggestions that I said that if you don't want Karthus to be an oppressive jungler is you change his W and his R. You make it so that his R gets a higher percentage magic penetration and you remove damage from his R. That's all that you have to do. You take away damage from his R, and you put Shred into his W, and now suddenly he can't just press R while he's farming the Gromp camp and add to an assist or a kill down in bottom lane. Instead, if his W gives more percentage shred, magic percentage shred, or a flat percentage shred, now suddenly he has to be mid or top lane again. And if he hits the W, he's rewarded for hitting it with follow-up Qs, or if he hits the W into an R while he's inside of passive, then he ends up being rewarded as Karthus. But we probably won't see stuff like that because God knows why. I mean, there's so many support champions that could end up being buffed, but they don't end up getting buffed. We were in a meta where Braum, Tahm Kench, and Alistar, and all these other champions were super psychotically oppressive, and rather than buffing the champions that actually answer them or doing something to the itemization that hit them, instead we just hit them over and over and over, and then items continue to change, and the champions around them continue to change, and suddenly those champions don't actually go with the current meta champions, and then Riot forgets about that, and we end up getting these really disgusting, boring, stale metas that everyone says is really good. And truthfully right now, the League of Legends meta is stable in a sense that it looks like the game is able to do a lot. But in the reality of the situation is if you allow the meta to keep edging forward, right? Very similar to Worlds. We're going to end up in a situation very similar to Worlds or last summer in 2018 where it just keeps driving towards this one point of realistically there's only a few options available. Like I just said, Urgot and top lane. There's no top laner that comes close to Urgot right now. There's just none. Lissandra is a champion that in theory shouldn't be able to be blind picked or first picked, but suddenly she is because every champion sucks. That's kind of weird. Right? Galio is a champion that shouldn't have been able to be blind picked or first picked, but he was because he was overtuned in addition to the champions that answer him being too weak. They were undertuned. Anyways, and rather than me just continue to ramble on and on about this type of stuff, I will say this. The addition of the crit ADCs essentially is a bomb. You guys might have heard me over and over talk about how I like seeing bombs implemented into patches. Kindred, for instance, was a temporary bomb last summer. And what I mean by a bomb is that it's a champion that is overtuned and doesn't get hotfixed or something. It's thrown into the meta, and it warps the meta around it. So, in a way, the marksman itemization changes will affect the meta in a way that we aren't currently prepared for, and in doing so, it will affect the support meta. It will potentially affect the mid meta, as I already said. We could potentially see the return of champions like Karma and Lulu, these champions that they can't really kill you, but you can't kill them, but that's not really their purpose, because their purpose is to serve the ADC later in the game. Or potentially start seeing stuff like that. So in that sense, Riot did add a bomb at least in 9.3. I don't know why there's no Sylas buffs or anything because the champion's an absolute joke right now, I believe. But, I mean, Akali, Aatrox, and Aralia are just gutted. So that's it for the patch 9.3 notes rundown. I'm going to go lose my mind. Hope that you guys enjoyed it.